Nancy Cortez at the United Center in Chicago. Welcome to a special Democratic National Convention edition of America Decides. Supporters are gathering here in Chicago for night 2 of the Democratic National Convention as the party looks to the future. That's the theme of tonight. A ceremonial roll call will be held this evening to select Kamala Harris as the Democratic nominee for president. Tonight, President Barack Obama and former First Lady Michelle Obama will rally behind Harris. They'll both be speaking here, addressing the crowd in their hometown of Chicago. Also on the speaker's docket tonight, second gentleman Doug Emhoff. He'll be talking about his wife. And as night 2 of the DNC gets underway, Vice President Harris, she's not here. She's breaking away from the convention for her first campaign rally as the nominee in Milwaukee, Wisconsin. We're going to get to that a little bit later. But first, here at the United Center, Adriana Diaz is down at the floor and joins us now. Adriana, tell us a little bit about the headliners, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, and what we expect to hear from them tonight.
Hi, Nancy. Good evening. It is a party atmosphere. People are dancing out here on the floor. We are at the podium position, which is just off stage. And yes, those headliners, Barack Obama, Michelle Obama, you can't get bigger star power, any more wattage of the Democratic Party. And we expect them to do what they do here in Chicago to make this crowd fired up and ready to go. But this is really a full circle moment because in 2008, Kamala Harris, when she was DA in San Francisco, actually volunteered for Barack Obama. She was a volunteer in Iowa, and now he's out here essentially volunteering for her. What we expect him to say is make clear that Harris and Walz are exactly what the country needs right now.
Right, and he has known her for 20 years, so he has the opportunity to really paint a picture of her in very personal terms if he wants to. Adriana, we know that they've had to make some tweaks to the schedule tonight to ensure that what we saw last night doesn't happen again tonight, where the headliner, in last night's case, it was the president, Joe Biden, ends up speaking about 45 minutes later than scheduled, well outside of prime time, closer to midnight Eastern time. So they're trying to streamline things tonight so we hear from the Obamas a little bit earlier. But talk to me a little bit about the fact that they are speaking here in Chicago, a city that means so much to them, a city where Barack Obama really got his start, as he likes to talk about, as a community organizer.
I mean, the Obamas are synonymous with Chicago. The only other Chicagoan that people really revere, like they do the Obamas, is Harold Washington, Chicago's first black mayor. But the Obamas are, you know, and Nancy, you know, I used to live here. I was here for almost 10 years. They are Chicago's own. We remember those images from Grant Park when everyone gathered when he won the election in 2008. So the fact that they are coming back home to Chicago to address the crowd and to tell these people to turn out and vote, and that Kamala Harris has his full support is significant. And Chicago is really where you saw the spectrum of Barack Obama. You saw the grassroots community organizer on the south side, on the west sides of Chicago, doing really important and difficult community work. And he also was doing corporate law. That's what brought him to the city of Chicago to begin with. He, of course, met Michelle here, and the rest is history. But this is a hometown boy, even though he was raised in your home state of Hawaii. But this is going to be a homecoming for the Obamas for sure.
No question. You know, throughout this 4-day convention, we're hearing from some family members of the nominees that we don't typically hear from. Ashley Biden introduced her father, Joe Biden, last night. And tonight, Cole Emhoff is going to be introducing his father, Doug Emhoff. We're also going to be hearing tonight from one of the most beloved progressives here in this hall, Bernie Sanders, and we're going to be hearing from some Republicans as well. What is the message that the organizers are trying to send by inviting Republicans to speak here at the Democratic convention?
I think the message is spectrum. There is a broad support. There's a broad range of support for Kamala Harris. As you mentioned, Cole Emhoff, other kind of younger speakers, Ashley Biden, the youth vote is so important and so critical to a Harris victory. So we have the youth vote. We also have establishment Democrats, Chuck Schumer speaking tonight, Bernie Sanders is speaking tonight. And then we have Republicans who have crossed party lines to support Harris. Stephanie Grisham, who, used to work for former President Trump in the White House as his press secretary and worked for Melania Trump. She's going to come out here and say, I was a fervent Trump supporter, and I am here now supporting his opponent because she will outline, just things that happened behind the scenes that she believes really paints the real picture of Donald Trump, and she's going to lay it all out here for the crowd.
If you've been watching Adriana, your eyes are not deceiving you. It suddenly went dark in the hall, and of course it went dark where Adriana is standing as well. She is at the mercy of whatever is going on stage. They're playing a video, and so of course they brought the lights down in order to do that. But Adriana reporting through it all. Thanks so much for setting the scene for us tonight.
Thanks, Nancy.
And we're going to go now to the stage because Stephanie Grisham, former President Trump's former press secretary, is going to speak. This should be interesting. Take a listen.
I was a true believer. I was one of his closest advisors. The Trump family became my family. I spent Easter, Thanksgiving, Christmas, and New Year's all at Mar-a-Lago. I saw him when the cameras were off. Behind closed doors, Trump mocks his supporters. He calls them basement dwellers. On a hospital visit one time when people were dying in the ICU, he was mad that the cameras were not watching him. He has no empathy, no morals, and no fidelity to the truth. He used to tell me, "It doesn't matter what you say, Stephanie. Say it enough and people will believe you." But it does matter. What you says matter, and what you don't say matters. On January 6th, I asked Melania if we could at least tweet that while peaceful protest is the right of every American, there's no place for lawlessness or violence. She replied with one word: no. I became the first senior staffer to resign that day. I couldn't be part of the insanity any longer. When I was press secretary, I got skewered for never holding a White House briefing. It's because, unlike my boss, I never wanted to stand at that podium and lie. Now here I am, behind a podium, advocating for a Democrat. And that's because I love my country more than my party. Kamala Harris tells the truth. She respects the American people, and she has my vote. Thank you.
She is the former, you've been listening to Stephanie Grisham. She is the former press secretary for former President Trump. And she was very close to Melania Trump as well. But she said there, got great applause for the fact that she said that she is going to be supporting Kamala Harris. The presidency isn't the only seat that Americans will vote to fill this November. Coming up, we're going to look at the impact that the people at the top of the ticket could have on the balance of power in Congress. You're streaming America Decides. We'll be right back. While getting Kamala Harris elected is top of mind here at this convention, the party is also hoping to flip the House and maintain their majority in the Senate because, of course, even if Harris is elected, if she doesn't have a Democratic House and Senate, she will be limited in what she can do. So Washington Democratic Congresswoman and chair of the DCCC, Suzan DelBene, joins us now. She is in charge of trying to get Democrats the majority in the House. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being with me. You need to net 4 more seats in the House to flip control. How is the outlook now, 1 month into the Harris nomination?
Well, we've had a great outlook this entire Congress, this entire cycle. We have incumbents who are strong running for re-election, and we have 30 candidates across the country. We call them our red to blue candidates, who are looking to either keep open seats or flip districts that are currently red-blue. They are running strong campaigns. They're independent thinkers. They're results-oriented. You know, folks across the country want to see governance work. And this cycle, we've seen chaos, dysfunction, and extremism on the Republican side. So we have an incredible opportunity to net those 4 more seats. You've seen some people with badges, they say 4 more in 24. But we're going to work hard to elect as many Democrats as we have, so we have a strong majority in the House, and Speaker Hakeem Jeffries.
Obviously, it's easier to pick up those seats when you've got a candidate at the top of the ticket who's doing better in the polls. She certainly looks like she's doing better than President Biden was a month ago. But she's going to be barnstorming the same 7 battleground states for the next couple of months. And most of your incumbents who need to win their seats, most of your most competitive seats are not in those 7 states. They're in Texas and New York. How do they benefit from this surge in enthusiasm for Harris when she's not going to be visiting those states?
Well, we in the House have a big map that's all across the country. We have over 60 races on our map. 31 frontliners, folks who are running for re-election in targeted districts, and 30 red to blue candidates looking to flip districts across the country. But they're in New York and California, to your point. They're also in Michigan and Arizona and Pennsylvania, states that will also be important presidential states. So we have folks running in Iowa and Nebraska and Alabama. So we have opportunities in red states and blue states, in purple states. But really what's most important in our races is having strong candidates. They are running their unique races in these districts across the country. And remember, they're pieces of states in many cases, unless you're Mary Peltola in Alaska, where you have a whole state as a House member. But because they're running, they have unique issues. They're talking about the issues in their communities. And that's really where the focus is in the House, having authentic candidates who are standing up for their districts and being an independent voice. So they're going to run their campaigns. You're going to see others support them. But our job at the DCCC is to make sure we get their message out, because when we do, we win.
Tim Walz was one of those candidates once upon a time, now the vice presidential nominee. Are there particular issues? Obviously, all of these districts are different. But are there particular issues that resonate in these swing districts, these purple districts, that you have pushed to bring to the forefront here at the Democratic Convention?
Well, I think the number one issue in almost every place across the country and in swing districts have been issues of affordability, economic issues, the pocketbook issues that families are facing, housing and the need for more affordable housing across the country, making sure that we have childcare. If you can even find childcare, the cost of childcare is really high. Republicans want to put in place tax cuts for the wealthy and well-connected. We want a tax system that helps strengthen and grow the middle class. So those are the issues we've been talking about. We did a lot of work last Congresswoman majority, lowering drug prices, getting investments in infrastructure. But imagine what we can do when we have gavels and we can govern versus the dysfunction that we've seen from House Republicans when they're in charge this Congress.
Speaking of the economy, on the stage right now here at the convention, a Teamsters Union official. Let's take a listen to a little bit of what he has to say, and he's obviously surrounded by other members.
61,000 from Michigan. As president, I know Kamala Harris will have our backs. She will fight for our retirement, Social Security, and Medicare. Beverly passed away in 2019, but I kept my promise, because a promise is a promise is a promise. Thank you.
For years, Big Pharma has often inflated the price of life-saving medications.
Union support obviously was a big focus yesterday up on that stage, and apparently it is today as well.
Well, this is about working families. We know that making sure that we're supporting workers across the country, making sure that they're getting fair wages, making sure that we have an economy that is working for everyone in our country is a huge priority for Democrats. And it's a huge priority for our brothers and sisters in labor who are working hard to make sure we have an economy that is working for everyone and working hard to build the middle class. So that's what's so important. We're going to stand up for their rights to make sure they have fair wages and make sure we have working conditions and opportunities for everyone in our country. That's what matters to people, right? We're talking about the kitchen table issues, retirement security, Social Security, Medicare that you just heard about. Those are things we're fighting for. If you look in Project 2025, it's tax cuts for the wealthy and well-connected, cutting Social Security and Medicare. And there's no support for families or workers. This is really about taking care of Donald Trump and Donald Trump's friends.
Congresswoman Suzan DelBene of Washington State also working to get Democrats reelected and potentially the majority. Thanks so much for talking with me this evening. I really appreciate it.
Hey, thank you.
And we're going to go now to the floor of the convention and our own Ed O'Keefe, who has been watching night 2 unfold. Ed, what do you got for us?
Nancy, we are at almost the exact opposite side of the arena from you. I can see where you guys are from over here in Michigan. Of course, a key battleground state, and we're joined by Lavora Barnes, the chairwoman of the state party. We've talked so many times over the phone and over email, never met in person, so nice to
good to be in person, and what a great place to do it, right?
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think of these seats you have? I would have thought you guys would get a good spot.
Here's the thing. Look straight ahead. It's a perfect angle on that beautiful stage and all of our wonderful speakers. It's awesome. Yeah, we love it up here.
So you've got, obviously, a competitive governor's or presidential race, Senate race. Alyssa Slotkin now in a dogfight there. A handful of congressional races. How does what's going on here this week, the Harris nomination, begin to transform things? How have you noticed the change in Michigan?
So when the change happened, when she became our nominee, the number of calls from people who wanted to volunteer, people who wanted to help, people who wanted to donate skyrocketed, really skyrocketed. And one of the things we knew was important was that we already had an infrastructure in place to take in all of those volunteers, because 10,000 volunteers a day have to go somewhere and do something.
10,000 a day?
Yes, for several days, that's how it was going. These calls and text messages and emails just kept coming. And it's terrific. It's a great feeling on the ground in Michigan. Folks are fired up, they want to help, and they want to win.
You say fired up. There's a guy talking later tonight who made that phrase famous, fired up, ready to go. His return to the convention, his decision to speak on Harris's behalf, what does that mean to Democrats?
I think it's so important for all of us to see the through line from where Obama started in 2008 to where we are now with Kamala Harris. He started something, like a big thing, that told this country we could elect someone who looks like me, and now we're truly going to elect someone who looks like me, because she's a woman.
So we're going to get the roll call of the states underway in a little bit. This is a formality because you guys already did this virtually amid some concerns about ballot laws in Ohio. Tonight, though, you're going to do it for show and for the pomp and circumstance of it all. Can you explain one thing to me? What is this phone for here on your post?
So somewhere in the back room, there's a team of folks who are managing all of the work that we're doing here. Right. And they call me and ask me questions about who's here, who's not here. They call me to warn me that someone's coming up to speak. And sometimes they call and suggest a chant we might want to do.
A chant? Okay. But is this like the one that gives you the signal, like it's your turn next kind of thing?
I
Get ready?
That's exactly how it goes.
All right. And you've got a script for tonight of sort of what you're going to say?
Ready to go. I've got partners, not just me. I've got partners.
And what's this about each state getting a song?
A song. I'm not going to tell you what it is, but yes.
Did you guys get to pick it?
We did indeed, yes.
Something Motown?
I'm not going to tell you.
We should point out, by the way, Governor Whitmer is also up here. She's been talking to fellow delegates and signing copies of her new book.
Selfies.
Taking selfies. Donald Trump was in Michigan today. Howell, Michigan, specifically, a city that's got
Quite a reputation.
Well, what is that reputation?
So Howell's like the home of the KKK. It's where it all happened in Michigan, was right there in Howell. And still to this day, just days ago, another KKK and militia group gathered in Howell and marched. And Donald Trump said nothing about it. No denouncement of that sort of behavior or that sort of hate. And then he chooses to go there, just days after they do that. It feels to me like he's sending a message, and I don't think Michiganders want anything that he's selling.
Yeah, there was nothing explicit he said in his remarks today to acknowledge that or to call out the fact that he was there.
He's in Howell. We know. Michigan knows what Howell's about. We know.
Chairwoman Lavora Barnes, nice to meet you. Thank you for hosting us up here. I mean, I'm going to have Jared point Nancy right back to you, all the way up there in the rafters. Back to you.
That is cool, Ed. Right back at you. Great to see you as the excitement builds for the roll call, which gets underway a little bit later this hour. It's always a highlight. That's the whole reason that these delegates are here in the first place, is to cast their votes, even if it is ceremonial. All right, former President Barack Obama is going to be speaking tonight, as you know, here at the Democratic National Convention. Coming up, I'm going to speak to his former speechwriter about what we can expect to hear. You're streaming America Decides. We'll be right back.
Tonight I say to the people of America, to Democrats and Republicans and independents across this great land, enough. This moment.
That was former President Barack Obama, of course, accepting the Democratic nomination in 2008. He's going to deliver a different kind of speech here tonight. And Terry Zuplat joins us now to talk about it. He's a former speechwriter for President Obama, worked in the White House. Terry, thank you so much for being here. You know this man so well. You know his writing style, what he wants to convey. You didn't work on this speech, but you know a lot of people who did. So what do you think he wants to get across about Kamala Harris tonight?
Well, that she's the right choice, that she should be the next president of the United States. I mean, you just played a clip from when he accepted the nomination. And thematically, when you look at all of his speeches, going back to 2004 when he was the keynote speaker at a convention, thematically they're always very consistent with one another. He's not, there's not going to be a new Barack Obama tonight. So I think the reason that the convention brings out speakers like Michelle Obama, Barack Obama tonight, is because they are so admired, they are so admired across this country. They're giving their seal of approval to Kamala Harris. If you admire the Obamas, they want to transfer some of that admiration to her this week, and that's going to happen tonight. So I think this will be a very thematically consistent speech from what you've heard and people like about Barack Obama in the past.
I remember in 2016 when Hillary Clinton was here at the convention,
right,
and when former President Obama was speaking about her, and I kind of expected that he would show us a different side of her. After all, he had lunch with her every week, just about, when she was the Secretary of State. He was in the Situation Room with her. She traveled all around the world for him. But I was surprised his remarks were not that personal. He took sort of a 10,000-foot view, talked about why she was so qualified. Do you think that he'll be more specific, more personal tonight when talking about Kamala Harris, someone he has known for 20 years now?
Perhaps. I mean, what's interesting is that Kamala Harris was a volunteer on Barack Obama's 2008 campaign. She was a volunteer in Iowa. She knocked on doors for Barack Obama to elect him president. So what a full circle moment this is for now him to come back and to endorse her and help elevate her to the presidency. So, yeah, I think, some of the most powerful speeches in history that resonate with us are when a speaker gets personal. So he has an opportunity to do that tonight. I hope he does. I think he will. The crowd loves those moments. I think it's interesting, right? Someone serves as vice president. Their job by definition is to be the number two. They're not supposed to be telling their story so much. They're there to support the president. Now, this week is all about helping the American people get to know who Kamala Harris is. Barack Obama can help do that tonight. Michelle Obama can help do that tonight.
Right, and she's got a very different style.
That's right. No, they both have different styles. We all have different styles, and I think hearing them together in one night, I think will be incredibly energizing. Not just for this room. You know, these folks are already on board, right? These are the party faithful. They're going to go out. They're already committed. Tonight, this entire convention, it's about speaking to those millions of people around the country who are still trying to make up their mind. And so, yeah, you bring out your big guns. You bring out the Barack Obama, who won election twice, you know. And, you know, this guy knows how to, you know, deliver a message. Bill Clinton's coming up later in the week. So, yeah, the 1-2 punch of Michelle Obama and Barack Obama, I think, can be really powerful tonight.
What do you think, if anything, President Obama is going to have to say about his former vice president, who spoke here last night and was the headliner, but who is no longer the nominee?
Yeah, I would. My guess would be the speech probably has 3 big parts. Part 1 is just an effusive tribute to the leadership of Joe Biden. Part 2 is, you know, framing this moment in history, framing this election. What is this about? And then why he believes so deeply that Kamala Harris is the right choice. I mean, that's really what the best convention speeches, the best any campaign speech comes down to, you know, defining the moment, defining the candidate, and defining the contrast. And if you can do all those 3 in a compelling way that moves millions of people, then that's a winning message.
Well, we don't hear from President Obama in these public settings all that often anymore, so it will be really fascinating to hear what he has to say tonight. Terry Zupplot, thank you so much for your insights. I really appreciate it.
Thank you.
What does the Harris-Walz ticket mean for the progressive wing of the Democratic Party? Massachusetts Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley is going to join us. You're streaming America Decides here at the Democratic National Convention. We'll be right back. Welcome back. We're continuing to cover night 2 of the Democratic National Convention right here in Chicago. And it's a big night because it is roll call night. So let's bring in our own Aaron Navaro because he knows all about it and how it works. And Aaron, it's so great to see you and be in the same spot because we're always crisscrossing the country in different directions. But what is different about tonight's roll call?
It's more ceremonial. Kamala Harris already locked this up officially a couple weeks ago when the DNC did a virtual roll call. They sent ballots through email to delegates. They filled it out, sent it back, and she was officially made the nominee in early August. So this is more of a ceremony. It's going to start with Delaware in recognition of President Biden and with California, Harris's home state. But it's really being fueled by the delegates. I talked to one today, a state Senate minority leader in Georgia, Gloria Butler, been to DNC conventions since 2000, asked her about President Obama endorsing Harris. Here's what she had to say.
I've lived long enough to witness a black man as president, and now I can witness a black woman as president. And I never thought in my wildest imagination that something like that would happen in my lifetime. And it makes me swell up with pride to be able to experience it all. So it means an awful lot to me.
Now, delegates I've been talking to have a renewed optimism with Harris at the top of the ticket, but they have 2016 at the back of their minds. They say there's a lot of energy for them, but they know they have to do more work to make sure voters turn out for Harris.
What makes the roll call itself so fun is you go state by state. Every state does something different. There are often surprises, people you don't expect representing specific states. So it'll be interesting to watch it get underway just a couple of minutes from now.
Right. And there also will be a DJ that plays a song for each state.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay, we'll be watching that. Aaron Navaro, thank you so much for bringing us up to speed. And let's go now to CBS News Executive Director of Elections and Surveys, Anthony Salvanto. Anthony, the Democrats tonight are saying it's all about the future. What does the polling say about the outlook that Democrats have about their party, about their ticket, now that the torch has been passed from President Biden to Vice President Harris?
Right, and it's all about vibes here, right? It's about the general direction of the country. Look, we've been asking this question for a little while. Do you think America's best days are in its future or in its past? This is different from whether you're optimistic, which a lot of people are, but where do you draw inspiration? And one of the things that I noticed, Nancy, is look at these party splits. 70% of Democrats say America's best days lie in its future. Okay, maybe that's why the party and the convention is going to try to find resonance with that idea. But Republicans, now, some of this is going to be based on the Trump campaign. He often talks about Make America Great Again, right? Implying that it was but isn't now. So some of that's going to be reflective of that. But 60% of them say America's best days are in its past, maybe echoing some of those themes as well. So that contrast to me is pretty striking. And then you noted this, I think, and some others have, Nancy, even though they're talking about the future, they have a list of speakers, right? Some of which are obviously former presidents. So I looked at that and I wondered, well, one reason why, perhaps, is when you look at the recent presidents who left office with positive approval ratings, well, who's on that list? Barack Obama and Bill Clinton, with, frankly, approval ratings that you just don't see any president get of late, Nancy.
Wow, that is so interesting. And there was such a heavy focus last night on the economy. How important of an issue is the economy to voters right now? And is there a difference between Democratic and Republican voters?
Yeah, there is. And not only are Republicans more likely to say that the economy is a factor, Democrats do too, but Republicans really do. Sometimes people answer that question knowing what their party's strong suit is. So there might be some of that baked in. But inflation as a part of the economy has been really critical here. And take a look at the difference, this gap Harris still has to make up. More people think if Trump wins, prices will go down, and Harris trails on that. So look for that message to try to gain ground there, Nancy.
Anthony Salvanto breaking it down expertly as always. Thank you so much. Joining me now here in Chicago is Democratic Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts. Congresswoman, so great to see you.
Good to be with you.
I want to ask you about those vibes that Anthony was just discussing. Last month, before current president, former nominee, Joe Biden dropped out, you said that Democrats who were pushing him to leave the race were losing the plot. How do you feel now?
Well, I'm grateful for this Harris-Walz ticket, which knows the plot, and the plot is the people. They are centering the people and their vision for a more just America that centers the humanity and the dignity of every person that calls this country home, which is in stark contrast to the Republicans and Project 2025 institutionalized Trumpism, which would cause harm to every person who calls this country home, dismantle the federal government and our democracy as we know it, and take us back. Whereas Kamala Harris and Tim Walz are about our freedoms and about the future.
What do you think about the future as Kamala Harris has laid it out so far, particularly when it comes to her economic proposals?
Again, she understands the plot, the people. And because she has her own lived experience that she brings to this, and because she has stayed proximate to people, traversing this country as the most effective champion for reproductive rights and abortion access and care, she understands that we have to be honest about the daily challenges and struggles of people and do everything to mitigate them. But she's also advancing policies that will meet people in their aspiration. So whether you're talking about down payment assistance for home ownership, whether you're talking about combating price gouging, understanding how that has increased the cost of groceries, whether you're talking about protections and thinking of our renters, as well. She is very focused, or a care economy, universal child care and paid leave. She is squarely focused on the struggles of everyday people, of every family model, of every person who calls this country home. But it's not only about their struggles, it's also about meeting their aspiration. As a surrogate for the vice president, when I was in Pennsylvania, a very important battleground state, I was just so moved by the fact that particularly amongst 18 to 35-year-olds, a demographic that had been, well, there was really an enthusiasm gap. They keep using words like joyful, hopeful, how much they appreciate that Kamala is future-focused. So she is going to deeply resonate and allow us to build this broad and diverse winning coalition to deliver her to the Oval Office.
You're often referred to as one of the members of the squad. Another member of the squad, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, spoke last night. She got a big headlining role. Do you think that that is a reflection of the fact that you've been successful in some ways in pulling this party to the left and getting the party leaders to embrace more progressive positions?
Absolutely. I mean, what does it mean to be a progressive? To me, it means you're a disruptor of an unjust status quo, that you seek to advance policies that grow as broad and as deep as the hurt. And those policies are not only sorely needed and long overdue, they are wildly popular. You take an issue like student debt. This is an issue that I was a lead negotiator in the House on. We worked in coalition, many progressives, to push for action on that. That was an issue that people really didn't understand the face of it, that they questioned if such a policy would be progressive in impact. But now, working closely with the Biden-Harris administration, we see that many people, millions of borrowers have benefited from that targeted relief, and it's been really game-changing. Or if you talk about the child tax credit, or if you talk about the mainstream push now, and even from our president for court reform. These are things that progressives have been championed that are now a part of the mainstream policy and public discourse, because these policies are sorely needed and very popular.
And yet you've got two other squad members, big progressives, who were just pushed out in their primaries, Cori Bush, Jamal Bowman. Are those outliers, or is that a sign that their districts weren't open to what they were pushing for?
Those outcomes are indicative of the Citizen United decision by the Supreme Court, and I could talk to you much longer about the ways in which the Supreme Court has been weaponized and caused harm. And it'll open the floodgates for this special interest dark money, which is really disenfranchising the electorate. So we have got to do something about this special interest dark money.
You're talking about these pro-Israel PACs that
I'm talking about dark money and special interest money, period. But certainly that did play a role in this race with Bowman and Cori. But these are two valued members of the Congressional Black Caucus as well, that I've worked very closely with on everything from equity in our education system to criminal legal reform to reproductive freedom to environmental justice. Their mark has certainly been made in Congress, and I have no doubt that they'll continue to do that work, even though they will be doing it in a different waveform and fashion.
Congresswoman Ayanna Pressley of Massachusetts, thanks so much for joining me this evening. Have a great convention.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Well, they may not have been tapped to be Harris's running mate, but they're still working to get her elected. What's next for those who made the VP shortlist? You're streaming America Decides. We'll have some answers when we come back. Welcome back to the Democratic National Convention in Chicago. It is night 2. Delegates are set to ceremoniously nominate Vice President Harris as the Democratic nominee any moment now. They are gearing up, trying to stay on time. Let's bring in our political panel, Sabrina Rodriguez and Peter Hamby. Sabrina is a national politics reporter for The Washington Post. Peter is a contributing writer for Puck News, and he's the host of Good Luck America on Snapchat. Great to see both of you. Sabrina, I'll start with you. Obviously, the Democrats would love nothing more than to capture the hope and change and excitement of 2008 when Barack Obama strode out onto that stage. You've been talking to voters here. What are they hoping to hear from Barack Obama tonight?
I mean, they baseline are just excited to hear from Barack Obama. I mean, it is 20 years ago that he gave his the influential speech that showed he was a rising star at the Democratic National Convention in Boston in 2004. And that was where he really showed, his focus on hope and unity. And at a time when the country is as divided as it is, and seeing just the rhetoric that is coming from the other side, they really want to hear him talk about how there is a road forward, how there is a bright future, how they really can see, the country improving, and that happening with Kamala Harris winning the presidency.
Peter, we were expecting to cover a much different convention, I think, than the one that we are covering now. Certainly there's a lot of love in the party for Joe Biden, but there is a lot more excitement now. How is that going to translate into action once these delegates and volunteers leave this convention and go back to their states, particularly their battleground states?
Nancy, you and I are both on the 2008 campaign. It does feel like the energy, enthusiasm, and excitement among Democrats, grassroots, is real and bigger than it has been for Democrats in many cycles. But in my conversations with DNC delegates here from across the country, they could be from California, they could be from a swing state like Michigan, they could be from, any place in the country. They are very, very excited, and more excited than they were when Biden was the nominee. Of course, we've heard that. But they understand that the cloud of Donald Trump winning again is still hanging over this race. It's still very close. Kamala Harris has made a lot of gains on Donald Trump. She's made up for some of Biden's deficits among certain subgroups in the electorate, but it's still a jump ball. Yes, she's up in certain key states. She's up nationally by around 4 points. But people here are saying they need to go back, work hard, knock on doors, raise money, create content for the internet. I was just on the creator stage inside. There's 200 creators here from around the country. The DNC wants to use them to reach non-traditional voters, people who aren't watching traditional news. Democrats are really trying to use every lever they can pull. No one is resting easy. One DNC member from California told me they aren't looking at this election through rose-colored glasses, he was saying, like they were back in 2016. And they kind of took it for granted and thought Hillary Clinton could beat Donald Trump. No one thinks that right now, as excited as they are.
Yeah, one of the things that's really different, Peter, from 2008 when we were covering the campaign together is the social media environment. And I keep running into influencer lounges here at the convention as they try to accommodate these social media stars who they are hoping, Sabrina, will really give them a lift in this race.
They are. I am later tonight going to a Hotties for Harris party.
You are not.
That is being hosted by some of the creators that are in this room tonight. And we just see Democrats are really leaning into that. I think, some folks of us in traditional media are like, wait, we wanted more passes and we wanted more involvement. But really, they're making a lot of space for creators to be involved, for creators to be putting content out, but also just for them to kind of get a better sense of when they're going and they're doing their TikTok videos or engaging with their audiences, what is the message they want to put out, whether that's about issues, whether that's about what about Kamala Harris's biography they want to be touting, and just kind of trying to get them more informed and plugged in so that they can help in the next 78 days get the message out.
And you've been spending some time with young lawmakers as well, who are influencers in their own right.
Yes, I've been spending time with Congressman Maxwell Frost, who will be on the stage on Thursday, but is really a hot commodity at this convention and really been speaking at delegation breakfasts. And to the point of what Peter was saying, is really driving home this point of, okay, you're here, it's a party, you're having a great time, but there is so much work that needs to happen, especially in those battleground states where it can be a matter of just a few thousand votes that determine this. And like we were saying before off camera, this is a group of people that is incredibly plugged in, but millions of Americans are just now, really tuning into this election. They might not know very much about Kamala Harris. Even if she was the vice president, they don't necessarily know what she stands for. And, they're going to decide this election, and they're still getting informed as we speak.
And they're a lot more energized than they were a month ago. Sabrina Rodriguez and Peter Hamby, thank you so much for your insights. And the roll call has now gotten underway. You can hear the cheers here in the convention hall. That's going to do it for me, though, for now. I'm going to see you in a bit with my colleague Nora O'Donnell, the rest of the CBS News team. You've been streaming America Decides on night 2 of the Democratic National Convention.